Obrigada a todos. Como vocês já estão peritos em usar o QR Code, vamos repetir agora um desses momentos. Podem, à medida que o orador for falando, colocar as vossas questões. Vamos repetir mais ou menos o formato da primeira sessão, ou seja, vão colocar as vossas questões e no final o nosso orador irá responder. Passo então a apresentar o nosso próximo convidado. Veio desde o outro lado do mundo para estar aqui connosco hoje. É conhecido por usar a tecnologia para aumentar o envolvimento na aprendizagem dos alunos e por resolver problemas através da inteligência artificial e machine learning, procurando sempre maximizar a experiência humana na educação. Trabalhou em todo o mundo para universidades e empresas de tecnologia, em projetos colaborativos e como consultor. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Professor David Kellermann.
G'day everyone. If you can't tell by my accent, I am from Australia. And I've travelled a long way to be here at this conference. I have presented in Portugal before in 2020 during the pandemic for a conference called Building the Future, but it was online. And the main difference I've discovered is that you don't get to taste the local food. So I'm going to talk today about this idea of the campus as a cyber-physical system. I am one of the last speakers today, so I have to absorb all of the ideas of the other speakers and try to bring something together here. And I'm going to try and do that today. So I am from UNSW Sydney. We are one of the big universities in Australia. We have 70,000 students. We have over 18,500 students in the engineering department, which is where I am from. So I'm a mechanical engineer, and I'm also really interested in education. I teach about 1,000 students a year. And like everyone here, I'm really passionate about education, and I'm struggling to solve all of these different problems and challenges that we have today. So this idea of the physical campus, it's a millennia-old refinement. The very first university in Bologna is coming up to almost 1,000 years old today. And you can see right next to it, there is my campus today. My university was founded in just 1949, and it looks quite the same, cloisters and a clock tower and everything. In fact, even here in Portugal, we have one of the world's oldest universities from 1290 AD. Now, the UNSW campus itself has been photographed, turned into a 3D map, and eventually fully digitized. Many people have proposed this idea that maybe the campus should be completely digital, fully VR, and then every student can go. But actually, when we think about which education would we prefer, the 1,000-year-old one or the one from just today in the virtual reality environment, I think there's a real tension here. In some ways, on one side, we have this idea of evolution, the tradition of university versus revolution. Can we open education up to everybody, anybody from anywhere in the world? And the reality is that there's a tension between these two things. I always tell my students in engineering to be really humble about all of the things that were discovered before them, all of the people that created everything in the world today. And in fact, virtually everything we see around us was invented and created and discovered by people who had a traditional education. I may not look that old, but when I went to university 23 years ago, I copied in a notebook from a professor with a blackboard and chalk. And yet here we are today with all of these incredible things we've done. We must be humble. We can't forget what that is, that classical education. And above all, what does it really do? You may look at these two photos and say, well, we shouldn't have either of these. The lecture is redundant. But actually, what does that do? It brings people together. It brings humans together, and it creates that community. So young people still today imagine university as an exciting beginning, a time where they're going to make friends and meet people and learn and discover. But technology has actually made university really lonely. We've tried to solve problems, we've tried to make it accessible and open up to everybody, but many students today end up just sitting on their own looking at a computer. In some ways, what technology has done is it's destroyed the learning community. So here's a challenge. What if we want it all? What if we want the best of both worlds? The campus as a cyber-physical system. How can digital AI and augmented reality enhance the human experience rather than destroy it. Now let's talk about some technologies. Digital twins. This is a physical telemetry maps to a digital model. We can have multiple sensors on a system and then have a model and understand everything that's going on with that system. But it doesn't functionally change the experience of the physical object. In cyber-physical systems, what we have is a digital system that is mapping to a physical embodiment, a physical system that is mapping to a digital embodiment. The two things are constantly interconnected. So I now want you just to imagine for a moment that there's a physical campus and a digital campus at the same time, that they're connected together and that they're constantly feeding into one another and enhancing each other. This is our best of both worlds idea. So I've got 4 questions I'm going to look at today. Can AI connect people rather than replace them? Can a hybrid classroom create a community of learners rather than people who are disconnected? Can assessments reflect a student's individual learning journey, even when it's at scale? I have a class of 500 students I'm teaching right now. Can augmented reality bring things like the laboratory and hands-on experience to anybody, even in a digital environment? So here's a little bit of a vision: community, classroom, assessment, laboratory. 4 ideas that I think make up a very large proportion of what a higher education experience is. Let's look at the learning community as a cyber-physical system. Now, when bots and ChatGPT replace humans, it's a lonely place. I did ask ChatGPT to make this graphic for me. I asked for a very, very lonely-looking student staring at a screen. Now, what does actually the GPT stand for? Generative, pre-trained, transformer. And that word P is very important, pre-trained. It knows everything about what's on the internet, but it knows nothing about the students in the classroom or what's going on because it's pre-trained. So today's conversational agents, just by that very definition, tend to replace humans. Can we use AI instead to actually connect people together? Now, how is this a cyber-physical system, by the way? Because a digital system, which is a bot, is going to influence a physical system, which is humans and their relationship, who are then going to ask more questions and go back into the digital system that will then create a very, very large knowledge base of data that drives the entire system. I wasn't satisfied with what there was, so I built my own AI, and I called it Question. That's a bot called Question. Every time a student asks a question, they tag the bot, they put it out in a forum with real humans. The bot goes and finds the person that's maybe best qualified to answer it. It notifies them. When there is an answer, it logs the question, the answer, and it makes a database. It also ensures that every single student's question gets answered, which I can tell you is a tough challenge when you have 500 students in a class. Throughout the first semester, the bot automatically logged over 1,000 topic-categorized question and answer pairs, wrote them to a digital service Q&A maker in the cloud, and then trained its own AI. And when subsequent students would ask questions during the exam, rather than just trying to answer it, the bot would try to say, well, some of your fellow students have already asked this question, and it will connect those people to their peers. A lot of students would use photos for context, again, something that is unique to that particular classroom. We put QR codes on all of the content. It can use machine vision to find it and understand the context of what they're doing physically in that system. In fact, even my lectures, which are recorded, we create digital artifacts. They have automatic transcripts, and the bots can search the recordings of the students' own class, and it can point them to their own material that happened within that learning community. So instead of replacing human interactivity with AI, QuestionBot connects students together and it points them to assets from their own learning journey. Let's look at the classroom as a cyber-physical system. Now, I have 500 students in a class, and you saw those old lecture theatres. And do you know what they actually look like today? Mostly empty. There's only about 20% of the students come to the room. So in a lecture theatre with 400 seats, there will be 350 empty seats. Where are the rest of the students? Well, they're at home and they're watching a recording and they've been disconnected from the human experience of learning. So what did we do after the pandemic? Well, we screwed cameras to the ceilings of the lecture theatre right up high, and it created, of course, a very poor experience for those remote students. In fact, many lecturers even experienced talking to a completely empty room. And on one side here, I've got a shot of an actual recording from what one of my classes looks like in that lecture theatre, which is essentially a helicopter view of the top of my head. It's not very good. So flexible recorded live stream lectures make for lonely campuses. Can we bring the best of both worlds together? Can we make the digital experience great? Can we make the physical experience great? Can we do them both at the same time? Well, hybrid classrooms today have a very poor interactivity. Again, we heard people talking about asynchronous learning today. We had people talking about being in the room and community. And like Jose said, the relationship between the professor and the students as well. Well, actually, most of these don't function in the system. So again, I wanted to design my own classroom. I wanted to build something myself from scratch that could have all of the connectivity and all of the bandwidth of different kinds of human communication, be that physical objects, digital objects, voice, our faces, digital inking. There are so many different things that we use to communicate. And can everybody communicate to everybody? So I designed my own classroom. And everything here was my own drawings, designing all of the technology built into the room, AV that would provide a digital embodiment for remote students. And a front stage that allowed us to do inking or coding or presenting or even bring experiments in and create a more dynamic learning experience. We began building from raw concrete, installing the studio quality interior, like Professor Mitra said, a beautiful actual environment for learning, huge amount of attention to acoustic quality and even simple things like having a coffee machine in the corner for the students to make a coffee before class. And there it is, finished in July 2022. I called it the Digital Teaching Studio. So this is a new format of classroom, digital in, digital out, a native classroom designed to both digitize everything that happens in the room physically and to physically embody the digital presence of all of the remote students at the back of the room. Again, a cyber-physical system. The rear of the room has a display that shows not only a preview or a confidence monitor, but it shows the questions, the chats, and along the bottom, the faces of all of the students in the room. That rear screen is perforated, and the sound actually comes from where the student's face is in the back of the room. And when they ask a question, the people in the room turn to them and they look them in the face. They have a physical presence in the room. It's not a regular classroom. This is the AV schematic, and I can tell you that maintaining the fidelity of every single part of that humanistic model of communication is a very, very complex engineering challenge. These screens serve as different form factors, right? We have simple buttons on each device that actually make it simpler to use than today's lecture theatres. The TriCaster outputs 3 different outputs, a huge screen at the back, the digital broadcast that's going to the remote students, and an in-room preview screen for the students who are in the room. So a large display in the middle, optimized for presentations where we're doing traditional content delivery, and you can see that the chat is captured on the side. There's incredible activity by the students, the online students during the class. In a typical 2-hour class, there will be over 1,000 posts in the chat from my online students. They are more engaged and more interactive than ever before. And I can tell you, as someone who used to teach in big lecture theatres, you might get 10 or 12 questions in a lecture. To go from that to 1,000 is mind-blowing. We're able to click a button and share the screen. The 50-inch screen, the smallest screen, is designed for digital ink and maths and diagrams. And as an engineer, I want to constantly draw and I want to create the content live with the students. And so I have a screen there. I can tap another button. I can share my screen. And that digital canvas is being synced in real time to the cloud and then to every individual student's computer. It is a shared digital canvas, and they are all co-owners of the content that we create together. The podium scene is optimized for software demonstration where we might do coding at the front with a keyboard and a mouse. And on average, every student is not only attending the class, whether it be physically or digitally, but you can see there 455 views after in the telemetry that on average they're then re-watching the class because the quality of what we produce afterwards is so good. And so we are also serving the asynchronous learner. So it's better for the university because we have better utilization. It's better for the professor because it is more exciting teaching with students who are involved. It is better for the students in the class because it's a more comfortable and unique and personal environment. The online students have got a better experience because of their digital embodiment in the room. And the asynchronous students get to watch studio quality recordings. We've created in one design a system that is better for all 5 stakeholders. Let's look at assessment now. This is a major challenge. Do we put students into a giant exam hall like cattle? Do we ask them all of the same questions? Well, exams make them feel impersonal. Can we use digital assets to produce a practical, authentic, and personalized assessment at scale, even when you're teaching 500 or 1,000 students? Well, after each class, my students receive a reflective question. I ask them to go out and find something, take a photo of their phone. This week I was teaching them about trusses. Trusses are mechanical structures made up of triangles that are inherently stable. They have to look around their environment. Look just in this room. Look up at the ceiling and you'll see trusses everywhere. They find one with their phone, they photograph it, and algorithmically the system creates a gallery of all of the things that all of the students found, and now we've created this community experience where they can see all of the things that each other discovered. When it comes to exam time, I take the structures that they found in their own environment and I insert it into their own exam, and their exam becomes something about their own unique, authentic learning journey. They have to do an analysis on the trust that they found in their neighbourhood. They all get their own workbooks with unique QR codes tied to their identity. The exam runs online with open discussion, with the internet available, like Professor Mitra said. Students scan their handwritten equations. This is a system of equality where they get to show everything. They're not tied down to a keyboard and mouse. And we then digitize that physical system, which we are able to then train using machine learning. The machine learning can analyze the ink that was drawn by the students and it can identify different components. Let's have a look what happens at an incorrect answer. The AI has actually created all of the feedback about the things that were missing from that solution. It can pre-fill it into the grading environment before the human marks it, and the human is able to use the AI's feedback as an accelerator so that they can now spend more time giving meaningful feedback to the student. This improves their experience, it improves the student's experience. Let's look at the laboratory finally. Laboratories are limited to those who can be on campus. Can we start making physical laboratories better for students, whether they're on campus or off campus? Can we make cyber-physical systems out of our labs? So here you can see a physical lab. This is in our own engineering building. We can actually build a digitized model of that experiment, and we can assign real physics to the system. So what you'll see here, on one side we've got the augmented reality version and the other a video of what happens in the class. The same physics, the students can go into the laboratory, whether it's digital or physical or both, and they can take their own readings out of those systems. Can we bring the lab into the classroom? Here at the front of the digital studio, again, Professor Mitchell was talking about measuring beams, one of the first things he did as a student. And this here is a beam bending experiment with a series of sensors along it that not only tells you the deflection of the beam, but it tells you what is happening internally into the beam. Everything is digitized into the system. And the data from those sensors is not just written to a computer, but it's written to the cloud, to the database that is owned by all of the students. So remote students are not only watching a feed of the classroom, watching the experiment with their digital embodiment in the room, where the students in the room are taking measurements of the system. But the online students are watching the telemetry from the cyber-physical systems and taking readings. So whether the student is in the room or at home remotely, they're all participating in the experiment that we're doing live to prove or confirm the theories that we have proposed during that very class. Let's watch a video of it live in action in my class from just a few weeks ago. So you can see here I've done all of the digital inking. I've drawn the hanger here where the weight is going to be along the beam, and we've drawn, for any mechanical engineers in the room, we've drawn a shear force diagram and a bending moment diagram. And the blue triangle that you see here is the prediction of what the bending moment profile should be throughout the internal beam.
M max equal to...
That's the maximum moment.
1.275 Newton meters.
1.275 Newton meters. That's our theoretical prediction.
So we have got our shear force diagram and our bending moment diagram coming live through the rig. And I'm going to hang it at exactly that mark, right, which is at our 390.
That's the students going, whoa.
Okay, now let's check. I'm going to hover
Remember that number,
1.27
Newton meters?
Are you reading that number? 1.278. What's that number?
Okay. The students, their mind is blown when we can inspire them, when we can meet their curiosity between us, whether they're in the room or whether they're online. Can we go even further? Can we just digitizing the physical, can we physically embody the digital? Well, this classroom, you all know about the metaverse, about headsets. No one wants to do this in education. The first thing you do is you cover your own face. What if we can stretch the helmet out so that the room becomes the helmet? Well, this room has got all of the sensors of an augmented or a VR system, and it's built into the very fabric of the room. The sensors know where the people are. So it's like we're all collectively together inside one giant helmet as a learning community instead. Now you can see here that with time-of-flight sensors, we're able to create a wireframe of the body and track individual things like the locations of fingers and joints and other such things. And if you look carefully in this video, you'll see here that the wireframe model is real-time from the presenter who's just standing at the front of stage, and you can see their fingers moving, and you can see them actually pushing objects that are in virtual reality. They're not wearing a helmet. How do they know where these objects are? Well, remember that screen at the back of the room? It's a mirror image of the live stream, and it's like shaving in the mirror or combing your hair. They're seeing these objects in the mirror at the back of the lecture theatre while maintaining eye contact with all of their students. Now, we had a joke about maybe we could test the beam on Mars, and of course I can just change the background like that because it's a digital environment, and I can put it on Mars. I think maybe if I can click, I wonder, maybe if at the back, I don't know if you can click that one to make that autoplay. Okay. I'm not sure if the production team are able to do that one. But what we're actually able to do here is we're able to stand at the front of the stage, and we're able to bring digital objects into physical space, and I can actually push this object around, and I can move this object in real time at the front of the classroom. So is it a physical experiment that I'm turning into digital data, or is it a digital model that I am physically embodying at the front of the room? We can do both things at the same time, and we can do these things in a loop to enhance the experience of all of the learners, but also bring all of the content, be it digital or physical, into the front of the classroom. So we're still working on that right now. In fact, those videos I showed you, some of them are just from last week, and this is a big project that I've been working on for maybe 6 years now. Everything that you've seen here today is just my work. That's just my idea. And I think, what about the tens of thousands of professors and engineers all over the world? The physical campus is something that we've almost perfectly refined over 1,000 years. So now we need to start evolving the digital campus. We've got a huge journey ahead of us. Think about all of the things that are possible if we put our minds to it. What is the digital campus as a cyber-physical system? I've maybe just started to try and understand my own classroom. And I just want you to think about what would be possible if we were to do this to the entire campus. So that's what I want to keep working on. So let's keep innovating together. Thank you for listening, everyone, and thank you very much to Sonay.
Now is the time for your questions. Our time is limited, so we'll only be able to ask one question. What advice would you give to educational institutions or instructors that are looking to implement AI-powered tools and technologies to improve the learning experiences of their students?
Well, you know, there are so many tools that are out there. Just look at what's happening with generative AI today, and everyone says we have to embrace all the technology and embrace all of the technology. But really what I would say, and it's just incredible to have talks here today, you know, from people like Jose Pacheco. I mean, look at the incredible history. We always think there's a revolution and we discover we're wrong. And really beneath all of these things, what you discover is that there's something more important behind it all. You know, learning comes from curiosity. There is the curiosity of one student because of the content, like the hole in the wall. Give them the internet, they're curious, they'll learn. There's the curiosity that comes from a student's peers and their other group. There's the curiosity that comes from the teacher. There are different ways and there are different people and there are different students. And when all of this new technology comes, we might feel like it's all overwhelming. And don't think about this idea that your task is to find a way to implement the technology. It's not. We already know how to teach. We already know how to educate. We've got to get back to the business of education. The technology is only there if it can enhance what we're doing, if it can help us bring something new, some new element to our experience. So I would always say to, you know, be humble and don't forget about what the most important things are.